All right, everybody, we're going out on a morning run, 6 miles. Let's see what we can do. Let's go. Nice little sunrise. Got bouncy cam for a second. Really humid. Got pink sky coming up over the gray. Mile 1 plus. Okay, it's not even, well, it's barely past 6 a.m. I've already come across 3 logical fallacies this morning, waking up and looking at the internet. I thought I'd share with you guys. First one might be dude wearing a Camelback hydration pack was like, it hurts my back. I wore 2 liters and it hurt my back. If you weigh 2 liters, that's 4 pounds, maybe 4.5 of water. If 4 pounds on your back makes your back hurt, you got bigger problems than aerodynamics or whatever. That's freaking psychological. You can put on 4 pounds in just your clothes and your wallet and keys and you're fine. So anyway, there's that. And then the next one was somebody trying to argue that fish scales were the same as dimples. Dimples, like golf ball dimples. No, golf ball dimples are omnidirectional. It means you don't know which way is going into the wind with a golf ball because it rotates like a wheel, and sort of. And scales are smoother one direction than the other, kind of like shark skin. Those are actually little miniature teeth, but anyway, smooth one way, rougher the other. And yeah, there's that. And there's a time and a place for both. We're gonna go over here. And tripwires actually are used whenever it's a fixed object going through a fixed wind direction. And my old BMC frame had them on the fork, the leading edge of the fork and the frame. But wheels with dimples are faster. The question is, are fish scales even faster than that? If you take the dimples off a golf ball, it goes far shorter. That's a weird phrase. And what was the last one? Oh yeah, and the last one is the revelation that frame bags are more aero with than without. And it's like, no, duh. It fills in the space behind the head tube. And same thing with bento boxes, it fills in the space behind the stem. And people refusing to use them is just a logical fallacy of tradition. And yeah, use those to your advantage. These little marginal gains add up and make you way faster. Good to know. Another interesting thing I saw was the first 5 hours, I think, of the Unbound XL. And it's just camera mounted, whatever. And kind of towards the front. And there was a guy fully aeroed out, triathlon style. So high knee socks, aero socks, I guess. It's hard to tell. And then shoe covers. And the crazy thing was a very real aero helmet. You know, with the pointy tail. And what you should know, because I've tried it, is they're useful up to a certain temperature and down to a certain speed. So if it's going to be hot, the benefits of cooling are actually more important than aero, and especially your head. That's where your brain's located. Your body starts shutting down because it doesn't matter how aerodynamic an overheated engine is. It's not going to help. That's 2 miles. So I'm gonna take a sip of fuel. So I just heard a rooster. Okay, a little bit of water. Hold on. There you go. Sniff that. Come on. So gravel is slower and the climbs are steeper. So if it's a not even hot but warm and humid day, you start to get overheated. I've tested. I've worn an aero helmet out on my gravel bike doing 50-50 gravel. It's rolling terrain, 50% pavement. And going into the wind, I was all right. But going with the wind and then going uphill, and it wasn't even that hot of a day. It was just kind of warm. I got overheated really quick. And I was wearing a Giro Advantage 2, which has 2 big ports on the front and scoops on the side and is empty on the back, and then a long tail that drops down, points back like a beak. And it got hot to the point I was like, this sucks. No, and I was testing it out for some race I was gonna do, and I've worn it for shorter stuff to take a calm that was like 6 miles maybe, and at that point the temperature didn't matter. By the time I overheated, it was over. And that was level gravel-ish, and I probably averaged 21 miles an hour with very little climbing. So that's good to know as well. As if I've got a race coming up this fall where I might end up wearing an aero helmet. I might not. And I think it totally depends on the temperature. If it's cold, an aero helmet's actually really great because you're aerodynamic and it keeps you warmer because there's less ventilation. I believe the air is denser enough. I don't know which one matters more. I'd have to look. Dense cold air or warm humid air. Warm dry air will definitely, you'll cut through faster. But I think air pressure also matters a lot too. In fact, I know that. When they try to set records for known distances on the bike, they look at air pressure and look for days where the air pressure is the lowest, because that's less air for you to move through. The more you know. We're doing this little out and back, very short one, so we don't have to get as close to the freeway to get in our 6 miles. And I love this fence. It reminds me of like a state or national park. Slow. And the fence tight. There's something about it. Is it just me? I think it's pretty cool. Back to the major road. Something that's interesting that happened when I was running in Alabama is, did you know that how bright it is in the morning? It's different based on where you live in your time zone. So let's turn around. And Alabama is really far east in the central time zone. And so at the same time that I was used to, the sun was up earlier. Same time by our time zone system. River, be careful, we don't go in there. We don't go in there. And I'm trying to remember somewhere where I lived west in a time zone. But I remember in San Diego, I'd get up in the morning and they're really far east in the Pacific time zone. I'm like, man, it's dark. Yeah, and that was the same thing with Alabama, where, oh no, we're gonna lay in the, oh, nasty. Oh God. We're here it's a little bit lighter. At the same time, we've had more time for the sun to come up, to come further over this part of the earth. Although we're on the same time as Alabama. Okay, hold on. Let me untangle your leash. We'll be right back. Okay, we've got more of this. He's hot, even though I sprayed him down before we started. And a little Zen advice for you is always consider removing when you're looking for solutions to a problem. What's the most simple way? Is actually the question you ought to be asking. What can I remove? And when I'm trying to mess with my watch and figure, should I have it auto pause when I'm stopping? Should I have it not auto pause at all and press the stop button every time? Should I have it auto pause at a 14-minute mile, 11-minute mile? And I finally settled on remembering the Zen stuff. What's the simplest? Well, not having to press the start and stop button every time. It's pretty much the simplest. Okay, so then what's the right speed? And for that one, you kind of need a reason, right? Because there is no right speed, really. So it's like, oh, what's something that strikes us as let's make sure this headlight's out, not wasting battery. What's something that is meaningful? And it's like, oh, an ultra is backyard ultra, 14-minute mile, plus just a little bit more. It's like 14:12 or something like that, minute mile is the pace. And you just do it at 14 because the 12 is going to be eaten up at the base aid station, gathering your stuff together. So let's do 14-minute mile is actually useful for training, because you got to ask yourself, what are you training for? All right. And then that'll make it meaningful, right? When you're trying to decide and you can't decide, if you can point to something and go, well, 14-minute miles to cut off for something big I'd like to do, then that decision's kind of made for you, and that simplifies things. So then on my run, I can just go out the door and just start running. There's a bunny rabbit. He's checking out. And I can get my run in and then think about my day and plan my day and the whole metrics. What I'm doing is kind of already figured out. Need to take a sip of fuel for a second. So we'll walk, time it with the walk up this hill so it's easier. Back to the aerodynamics thing. You'll see stuff that has dimples on it that isn't rotating or isn't a fixed, or that is a fixed position. So, and that's useless, sort of. It's probably helpful, maybe, but it's not really worth it. So a helmet with dimples on it, I mean, 90% of the time you're facing the same direction, 99% of the time, right? You're only turning sideways and looking back every once in a while. It's really not worth it. What's more useful is a tripwire. And you'll see some aero helmets that have dimples on them. And just so you know, that's just more of a gimmick and not worth it. And I've seen aero helmets that have a tripwire across the top, and that's way more useful, but it depends on the position you hold your head, right? It's the angle of attack of that tripwire, so it needs to be in the right spot, and that kind of depends on the person and how much time they spend looking down versus looking forward. And I'm talking about, like, it could matter just a few degrees. And at that point, it might just be worth it just to have a smooth helmet. Then it's aero when you're looking straight ahead. It's aero when you're looking 5 degrees down. It's aero when you're looking 15 degrees down. It's aero when you're turning and looking to your side just a tiny bit out of the corner of your eye. It's still aero. I'd really like to see wheels that have a tripwire built into the wall. So the tripwire is, like, say at the top of the wheel, the wire would be vertical, with a little bump. Because at that point, I think the wheel might be moving twice as fast as the bike, because it's the wheel at the bottom, when it touches the ground, is going 0 miles per hour. So for the bike to be doing 20, that means the top of the wheel has to be doing 40. Right, so the top of the wheel, sidewall of the rim, being maybe having a tripwire, because it's going to spend most of its time going pretty fast into the direction of the wind, would be useful. So somebody that has access to fluid dynamic modeling, check that out. Another Zen approach that I figured out is, I've got my running watch with all my running metrics and blah, 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 crap like that. Sorry, it's slow because he's doing this all the time. And then on the other wrist, I threw on my diving watch with the rotating bezel and stuff like that. And what's going on is it allows me to peer into 2 different worlds the most simple way possible. This is all me over here, my running stuff. And yeah, it'll show time of day, but it's just one number out of many. And then when I want to check in with the real world, because I have to be, nobody else cares about my run. Work does not care. They're glad I run, so I stay healthy and do my job. But outside of that, I need to be at work at a certain time. And also how long I've been out here just in general. I'm able to time with the bezel on the outside really easily. And that, I can just look at that and tell. And with quartz, instead of automatic, it's going to run 3 years without having to charge it. And it's accurate to a few seconds per month. So once you set it, you're good pretty much until the next time change. So twice a year. And most quartz watches, better ones, if the battery starts to run low, they'll skip a second, they'll pause and then move 2 spaces. Oh, there's a baby deer. Okay, we're gonna wait. There's a baby deer. We're gonna wait for Mom to come back, okay? Let's leave him alone. One time I rescued a baby deer out of the road, and there's a 70 mile an hour, 60 mile an hour county road or state highway, just 2 lanes, quiet. And his mom was waiting in the bushes when I picked it up and carried it out there. And then it's a fallacy for people when they say, don't touch them, the mom will abandon them. That's not true. Because you got your scent on them. That's not true. Just Google it. But anyway, where did I leave off? That threw me off there. Oh yeah, so anyway, I put on my automatic watch, which is self-winding from the motion of your arm, but it lasts like a few days. I think it's 2 days before it runs out. And then you gotta reset the time. And if you rotate between watches for different uses, then I'm gonna go back and pick that up, are known as grab and goes. Just pick it up and it's accurate. You don't have to set the time on it every time. And that's a convenience thing. And they're cheaper. So depending on your lifestyle, you may think, I'm gonna do that. And you're like, well, I want something luxurious. There's a really cool watch. I do have a watch coming that's really interesting. It's a dive watch that's quartz, but it uses a Seiko 4 beats per second. So it almost looks like it's a sweeping hand without the pauses per second. Although I think the pause per second is kind of useful. Yeah. But anyway, Bolivar makes a lunar pilot watch. And Bolivar made all the instrumentation devices in the first space missions. Omega gets the credit for being worn on the moon on the wrists. But Bolivar was extremely accurate. And the lunar pilot does 8 beats per second. And it says so. It says something kilohertz on it. It's freaking cool. And then that costs a little bit more. I think a lunar pilot's like $500-600, maybe 4. I don't know. And it has history where I think his name, ironically, with all this army stuff, was Dave Scott. And he was on the moon, standing on the moon. And his Omega Speedmaster, the screen broke. The glass, the crystal broke. It cracked. And lunar dust is a mofo. And he brought with him into space his own personal Bolivar lunar pilot. And it's the only, so he wore that instead, and it was fine. And it's the only watch that's been on the moon that didn't break. One. But anyway, that was owned by a privately owned, because the astronauts, the other ones are government property, right? So who knows what happened to them? I'm not sure. But the lunar pilot went up for auction a few years back, and I think it's the most a watch has ever gone for on an auction. And it was like $2.5 million. And that's because it's been on the moon. It actually performed better than an Omega Speedmaster. And it was able to go up for sale at all because it was his personal watch. So when this mission was over, he took it home with him and has had it. So I think it sold with it's got moon dust on it and stuff. I mean, talk about freaking cool, right? So I've got a watch coming, hopefully, unless it has to go through the Strait of Hormuz. It's titanium with quartz, so it'll be grab and go. The bezel is loomed, and it was made for the French version of the Navy SEALs. And it's got a rotating bezel that rotates both ways. Thank you. So you can make tiny adjustments each way, and then the what else is going on with it? Because a lot of times you would make an adjustment, but if it's the wrong way than what you want, then you have to spin the bezel all, like this one, you have to spin the bezel all the way around, which will take a few twists instead of just a tiny little twist. And if you're doing stuff with your hands, like holding handlebars on a bike or a dog leash while running, it's a pain in the ass. And the bezel is loomed. I think it's 200 meters water resistant. And it's a hybrid between TUDOR, which is actually made by Rolex, and Seiko. Like I said, it's got a Seiko quartz motor inside of it. And then the TUDOR Pelagos is their famous diving watch. And I think that's a $4,000, $5,000 watch. And then the TUDOR FXD, if you want to Google something cool, it has fixed lugs. Like, you want to take the strap off? You can't. I mean, you can, but the strap goes through these lug holes. It's basically got holes to run a strap through. And that way, there's no pins. It's just solid bars of metal that's part of the frame, that's part of the body of the watch. And then, let's say you're doing underwater sneaky stuff, and your watch gets hung up on something, and you pull real hard to free yourself, and then you rip your watch off. That's not going to happen. You need that watch to navigate underwater and time, you know, when your bomb's going to go off or whatever you're doing. And that watch gets hung up on something, you're going to have to undo the strap to free yourself, which you can do. It comes with a Velcro strap just for that reason. When I get it, I'm going to replace that, because a Velcro strap is when they get wet, they stay wet for a long time, like an hour. I've tried it, and it's annoying. And if you're wearing a dress shirt, so I go swim, and then I put on a long sleeve shirt. Now the end of my shirt's going to be all wet from this thing. Hold on, bro, I'll get some water. So I'm going to replace it with a strap. It's more like this, which dries pretty much instantly. But yeah, the bezel rotates both ways, and it's loomed. The numbers on it are loomed. I think every single minute is loomed, maybe. And so when it's at night, you can actually see the minute hand versus the elapsed time. And the bezel, like I said, goes both ways. So I'm like, oh, I paused for a minute, so now I need to back it up or move it forward. Actually, it's the one. If I need to move it forward a couple minutes, I can do it easily. And I can see the whole thing at night and in the water. So I'm pretty excited. All right, I'll leave y'all with this shot. We're almost at 6 miles. So pretty. Great way to end the little video. Gonna try to bike this evening. Feel nice with the breeze and the in the air, and start making a list of things that I need for my race. got plenty of time. So start looking and getting little things. One piece at a time, start building stuff up. I'm switching the bike to a 2x because there's a huge amount of road portion on this race. And I much prefer much smaller gaps in gearing, and that's achievable with a 2x. And then I have a higher top end and a lower low end, which is nice because it's going to be really hilly as well. Thanks for joining me. See you next video.